Hey everyone, God bless you. Christ is risen. Thanks so much for tuning in. My reflection today, for your edification, I'm entitling What Robots Will Never Do. But before I say a word about this kind of technology, I'd like to wish you a very happy feast of Mid-Pentecost. Mid-Pentecost is the feast exactly halfway between Great and Holy Pascha and Pentecost. It joins these two miraculous rivers of grace, the resurrection and the bestowal of the Holy Spirit into itself in this celebration. It was the favorite feast of one of our great and recent saints, Elder Joseph the Hesychast, who fell asleep on the Feast of the Dormition in 1959. It was his favorite feast, and it's such a joyful celebration, and I wish you all wonderful days of Mid-Pentecost. I have spent much of my priesthood poking at our culture's obsession with STEM, with the scientific method, and with the investment, the obsession of investment in scientific matters, all to the exclusion of what really matters in life. I am not suggesting that it's not important to become an engineer or to study science, but we are so out of balance, we have so lost an appreciation for a different type of knowledge than scientific knowledge. We've so lost a respect for what it uniquely means, for instance, to be human and for the unseen, that I have found it extremely important to call to everyone's attention that all of the great things in life, the most important things of life, are all invisible and cannot be measured by the scientific method. The scientific method has nothing, in fact, to say about them. Things like God, truth, logic, love, the soul, the things that really motivate men and women to sacrifice, to greatness. It's not STEM that does that. No, it's the invisible things of life, the most precious things in life. Right now, of course, we're caught up in the storm of technological development. Even though we have been tasting the misery of obsession with external technology and with STEM matters, we have so separated this pursuit from the pursuit of nobility, the pursuit of morality, of serving God, that we have been swallowing a bitter pill, a truly bitter pill, as we all know, having lived through the hideous days of COVID, and who knows if we'll be experiencing that again soon. Father Alexander Schmemann, the one-time dean of St. Vladimir's Seminary, the very, very fine Orthodox priest of recent times, he made a beautiful reflection in a sermon called Doubting Thomas, reflecting upon Thomas's insistence on seeing and touching Christ and a different kind of knowledge. He points out, he simply in his sermon on Thomas, points out that Thomas was demanding that he would not believe unless he saw and touched, unless it could be proved by the scientific method. And then the Lord, in his humility, consented to be touched by Thomas, but then he pronounced a blessing upon all those who would believe without seeing, basically upon all future Christians. Was that blessing put. And Father Alexander simply points out that there is a more God-pleasing knowledge than scientific knowledge, and it's of the utmost importance with regards to matter of faith and being a disciple of Jesus. Thomas learned it. He had to move from his insistence on STEM, so to speak, and he had to move to a deeper knowledge, a knowledge of faith, a knowledge of the soul. Let me read to you some words from Father Alexander, which I have found extremely edifying on this subject. He says, "Millions of people today think and speak essentially like Thomas," isn't that the truth? "And assume that this is the only correct approach worthy of any thinking person. Unless I see, I will not believe." In our contemporary speech, isn't this the scientific approach? But Christ says, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe." This means that there is and was another approach, another standard, another possibility. We live in a world of great oversimplification and therefore spiritual poverty. scientific or unscientific. People use words like these all the time as if they were self-evident and self-explanatory. And they use them because everyone else also uses them without reflection, without debate. In fact, they themselves believe these reductions blindly and simplistically, and so any other approach appears to them as neither serious nor worthy of attention. The question is already decided, but is that really true? I just said that we live in a world of great spiritual poverty, and indeed, if the end result of humanity's interminable development boils down to this pronouncement, I won't believe until I see it, if the human race looks upon this as the height of wisdom and reason's greatest victory, then our world is truly poor, superficial, and most of all, incredibly boring. I love that. Technology, forgive me, is bloody boring. Despite all of the tech titans championing this development and that development. Really? If only I know what I see, touch, measure, and analyze, then how little I really know. The whole world of the human spirit falls by the wayside. All the intuition and profound knowledge that flow not from I see or I touch, but from I think, and most importantly, I contemplate. What falls away is that realm of knowledge which for centuries was rooted not in external observable experience, but in another human faculty, an amazing and perhaps inexplicable ability that sets human beings apart from everything else and makes them truly unique. Even robots, machines, and computers can now touch, handle, and manipulate objects. They can make accurate observations and even make predictions. We know that they actually perform better than human beings in measuring, comparing, making exact observations flawlessly. They are more accurate, more scientific. But here is what no robot, under any circumstances, under any circumstances will ever be able to do: to be filled with wonder, to be awed, to have feelings, to be moved by tenderness, to rejoice, to see what can't be seen by measurements or analysis of any kind, to love, I would add, to believe, I would add. No robot will ever hear those unheard sounds that give birth to music and poetry. No robot will ever cry or ever trust. But without all this, doesn't our world become colorless, boring, and I would say unnecessary? Oh yes, planes and spaceships will fly ever further and faster. But where to? And what for? Oh, Lord. Ouch. Ouch. Oh yes, laboratories will conduct their analyses with ever increasing accuracy. But to what end? Right. For the good of humanity, I'm told. Oh, I understand. So this means that one day we will have a healthy, well-fed, self-satisfied human being walking about who will be totally blind, totally deaf, and totally unaware of his deafness and his blindness. Unless I see, I will not believe. Clearly, however, observable experience, empirical data is just one form of knowledge, the most elementary, and therefore the lowest. Empirical analysis is useful and necessary, but to reduce all human knowledge to this level is like trying to comprehend the beauty of a painting by a chemical analysis of its paint. Masterful image. What we call faith is at a second and higher level of human knowledge, without which it can be claimed man would be unable to live even a single day. Every person believes in something or someone, so the only question is whose faith, whose vision, whose knowledge of the world corresponds more accurately and more completely to the richness and complexity of life. What a word from Father Alexander. So much tech, dear ones, so much tech is done simply because we can do it, without ever asking the question, should we do it? Why would we do it? Is it truly a benefit to do it? And so we hear now that humanoid robots are supposed to be available this year. 2025 is what they tell us. And it's supposed to be $1 trillion industry by 2030. Oh, whoopee! I can get rid of my wife, my children, and my cats, and I can have a robot. Really? Just because we can doesn't mean that we should at all. And because we aren't asking the larger questions, because we're acknowledging the most important knowledge, that which really makes us human beings, We're doing all sorts of foolish things because we can. Because we can do in vitro fertilization, we do IVF, which cannot stand a moral evaluation at all. And now we have millions and millions of little tiny human beings in freezers all over the West. We can live with this. We can live with this. Because we do. Gain of function research. We can manipulate viruses and make them more deadly than anything we find in nature. Because we should. Who says? Well, no one would say who has 1/2 of an ounce of spiritual understanding, which is why it's all done in secrecy and full of lies, secretly funded and done mostly in godless places. Nuclear weapons? No, these are all examples of the most ridiculous, unjustifiable abuses of secular scientific knowledge. Because we can does not mean that we should. No, we have other knowledge that is important to use to evaluate the development of external technology. We must bring our tech into moral evaluation. We must shackle it to true human benefit. And who puts the brakes on? How we can do this, we will find out now. May the Lord bless it. May He raise up leaders who will call for this very maturation in our quest. Let us cherish the truly human and the deeper forms of knowledge. And let's put aside, or at least greatly limit, the banal. Christ is risen. A blessed Lord's Day to all of you, brothers and sisters.
For November 17th, on which we commemorate Saint Gregory of Tours.
As we begin this new course in the St. John Chrysostom Catechetical School.
Now available on both Apple and Google Play stores.